Amen. This morning, I'm not going to belabor the time because I know we are in a special day. And I want to thank you, ushers, for doing what God has you doing in a very diligent manner. And I can tell you that, I was a junior junior usher, I'm sorry, my goodness, a junior usher when I was a little boy. And I can tell you from my own standpoint, it ain't easy. I mean, just passing out the program sometimes is an adventure. And then when you have to go and do all the other stuff you have to do. And nowadays they're requiring more of ushers than they ever had. So I can tell you in no uncertain terms, ushers, y'all have a job, and I must thank you for sometimes it is a thankless job. Amen. But because I don't want to belabor the time, even though our text will be taken from the 14th through to the 16th verse of Matthew, the 5th chapter, I'm not going to read all that in your hearing. But what I will do is read verse 16 and let that be our central spotlight. Well, Paul's parenthetically right here to let this be a part of what it is that God is saying to and through us this morning. Amen. It sounds familiar because I was in the back listening to Brother Aaron, and it's just confirmation, y'all. Because I was kind of torn where I was going this morning, but this is where the Lord evidently led me. Verse 16, let your light so shine before men that they may see your good works and glorify your Father, which is in heaven. Amen. This is the word of God for the people of God. Do your shine. I didn't say do you shine. Do your shine. You may be seated in there. Do your shine. Sounds like a dance, don't it? Do your shine. They come over the dab, come over the whip. Back in the day, some of them had carbon power. And we had a few other things, the jitterbug. We had all kinds of stuff back in the day. The bump. And every now and then we just get on the dance floor, we just do our thing. Just do a jig because you didn't know how to do anything. Y'all don't know what I'm talking about. That was back in the day before. Back in those days. But one of the things that, one of the things they used to say back in while we was on the dance floor, sometimes they say, man, just do your thing. Now, we didn't necessarily know what that thing was. We just say, do your thing. You go ahead then and do your thing. That was a word of encouragement, because when somebody used to tell me that, I did exactly that. I did my thing. I didn't care what was popular then. I just did whatever I could do. Whatever would get my body moving. If it was my song, I don't care what was actually playing. It was something that sounded good to me. It had a nice beat I can dance to, and I'm going to do my thing. Well, this morning I'm here to let you know that what God is telling you through Jesus Christ and His Word here in the 5th chapter of Matthew is that you need to do your shine. You need to be ready to know that doing your shine is an action word. Doing your shine means that you don't sit on the sideline, because in the parties I used to go to, wasn't no wallflowers. Everybody was out on the floor. And if you are going to do your shine, can't nobody be no wallflower when doing the ministry of Jesus Christ. Can't nobody be a wallflower when it comes to making a difference in whatever it is that God has you doing. Or I don't know what it is that God may have you doing. It may be something like in the culinary sciences, or it may be something that has everything to do with going out and being a witness to somebody that needs to hear about the gospel according to Jesus Christ. I don't know what it is, but at some point in time we need to recognize that it's not just about what it is, that the effect that we have on people. You just need to do your shine. And then recognize that by doing your shine, God is the one that gives the increase to whatever it is that you do. There was a story Christian friends of a young man in Camden, New Jersey, whose name was Marquise.
Thank you.
And Marquise was a young boy who was growing up in the projects. And one of the things that Marquise had done, he was invited by some folks that were doing their shopping. He was invited by those that actually were part of the Angel Tree ministry of a local church in Camden. And one of the things that was interesting was that every year the Angel Tree Project used to send kids to camp, to Christian camp. And so what happens is, in the Angel Tree Project, this young man, you know, he got saved, y'all. He embraced the understanding of the gospel according to Jesus Christ. Y'all want to know what that is? I'll tell you in a moment. But one of the things that he did was he couldn't contain himself when he got back from the Angel Tree camp, so he just went around just telling everybody, just letting everybody know who Jesus was. Man, you get him going real good. As a teenager, he started preaching to them. But the interesting thing that happened to Marquise was one day he was walking his little brother to school, and he got gunned down. And the interesting thing about Marquise was the fact that he basically had an entire entourage of people show up at the funeral that he had actually preached to, and actually had Jesus, knowing who Jesus was, had been baptized. They showed up in mass, they showed up in force, and when he showed up in the church, so did the folks from the Angel Tree Project. And then what ended up occurring was the fact that as the folks from the Angel Tree Project were shaking their heads in doom and dismay about what had happened, then it was the grandmother of Marquise. And she stood before all those hundreds of people and said, you know what, it's because of what Marquise, it's because of what y'all did. Y'all let y'all light shine. Y'all did the shine. That I have no worries about where Marquise is going. You see, I have hope because of y'all shining your light. Yeah, he may have had his life cut short, but he'll have an eternal life now because of the fact that you dared to let your light shine. And because you dared to let your light so shine, y'all did y'all's light. And because you did the light that God gave you, then one of the things that he has, he's given me hope. And let me tell you something. Y'all just continue to let your light shine. Because I'm just letting you know in no uncertain terms, it's because of you and because of the gospel that salvation is already assured. Now, why is it then that letting your light and doing the shine is such an important thing towards the actual appropriation of the gospel and salvation itself? Well, I'm going to give you 3 areas of encouragement, and then I'll have my seat. The first thing that I would encourage you to understand is that when you do your shine, you got to do it in darkness.
All right? About you. All right now.
Light ain't too much good around other light. Because you don't know which light is which. There's some lights that are shining to illuminate, but then there's some lights that are shining just to look pretty. And so what happens is the fact that in order for your light to be effective, it means that you have to go where it's dark.
Amen.
That's a metaphor, y'all. Let me tell you what that means. In going where it's dark, it means that you have to go where your unseeming folks exist. You may have to go where you basically would never go past 9 o'clock at night. Matter of fact, you don't even want to go past 9 o'clock in the morning. But sometimes it will take you to places that you don't want to go, because basically Jesus in this particular passage never promised that there would be a comfort zone established by you shining your light. He just told you to let your light so shine among men so as to do what? To show your good works. And then to do what? To glorify your Father which is in heaven. The thing about us is we sometimes think of ourselves as being, we make gods unto ourselves our comfort zone. Wow. We make gods unto ourselves feeling comfortable about what us is doing. The problem with that is the fact that Jesus was never comfortable his entire earthly ministry. As a matter of fact, in this particular passage, he just got through preaching on the Mount of Olives. And this is the conclusion to the Beatitudes. And then as Jesus had finished preaching, it seems here that one of the many multifaceted things that he was letting you know was, he said something that was interesting. He said, not only are you salt of the earth, you also light of the world. You got some duality there when it comes to your power. You are not somebody that's powerless against the darkness, because you have to remember that all God needed to do to dispel the darkness was to basically speak light into the darkness in the first place. Or if you don't believe me, all you have to do is read Genesis 1:1. It's right there in the beginning. God created heavens and the earth. And if you recognize that in the beginning God was there, he'll be there with you in the darkness as well as the light. So your comfort zone is not important to God. Your comfort zone doesn't matter to God. Your comfort zone has no bearing on God's power. It ain't about your comfort zone. Because when you actually do your life, you got to go in darkness. That brings me to thing number 2. I told you I ain't going to keep y'all long today. The second thing that you have to recognize is that and since we're talking about darkness, darkness will never be greater than light.
No. All right. That's good. That's a good one there. That's a good one.
Ushers, it is dark sometimes. You got not only folks' attitudes you got to deal with. Not only do you have other people's bad days that you got to deal with sometimes. Not only do you have your own bad days that you got to deal with sometimes. Every now and then you got some situations beyond your control that somehow or another you just don't know how you're going to manage it when these people come into the house of prayer. But I'm here to let you know, Christian friends, that all you need in your life to dispel any darkness is just a little bit of light. You don't need a whole lot of light. As a matter of fact, I've said this many times. Y'all probably heard me say this. But let me tell you something. Darkness is not the opposite of light. Darkness is the antithesis of light. And let me tell you what that means. In order for it to be the opposite of light, you need just as much darkness as you need light to be able to go ahead and cancel them out. You don't need that, y'all. Light will dispel dark. You can have a match in the corner of the room, and if it's pitch black in here, you're going to have some light. That's right. Darkness will not cancel that match, but that match will cancel the darkness. I'm here to let you know, in no uncertain terms, Christian friends, that darkness will never be greater than light. And that's the reason why Jesus used that analogy to let you know that if you let your light so shine, you just do the light. You ain't got to worry about what's out there to get you, because there's nothing that can get you that ain't actually able to be supplanted by God's wonderful, unchanging hand. And because God's wonderful, unchanging hand is something that actually carries with it a lot of power. How do I know it carries a lot of power? Because Jesus himself said his hand carries a lot of power. He said that once you're in my hands, no man can pluck you out. So if you're worried about what you're getting ready to do, and if you're worried about what's getting ready to happen to you, take no thought for tomorrow, because tomorrow contains the evil of itself. But seek ye first the kingdom of God, it says a few verses later, and all these things shall be added unto you. And you know why? Because darkness will never be greater than light. Darkness cannot stop your blessings. Oh, there may be people that's on your track trying to turn you back, but darkness will never cause your blessings to be delayed. Oh yeah, you may have some dark times in your life. Oh yeah, you may have some people that's backbiting you. Oh yeah, you may have work on your track. Oh yeah, poverty may be on your doorstep, but darkness will never be greater than light. I know the God that all the silver and all the gold is mine. The cattle on 1,000 hills is his. The earth is the Lord's, and the fullness thereof, and the world and they that dwell therein. It all belongs to God. And if that's not enough, let me tell you something else. If crying comes on your doorstep, all you have to recognize that weeping may endure for a night, but in the morning, your blessings, because darkness is never greater than light. Third thing. Boy, we getting ready to go, y'all. Can I take my time on this one? Yeah. I'm not gonna take this. But one of the things that I would have you know is you can do your life with confidence. Yeah. Because you know that Jesus told you to do the light. All right. Yeah. I'm gonna say that one more time. You can do your life with confidence. All right. Because you know that Jesus told you to do your life. Yeah. I see you, boy. I see you. What did Jesus say on the night that he was about to be betrayed? If you love me, then keep my commandments. Right. Now, it's hard to know how do you even love something or someone that you've never seen before. Well, I'm about to help y'all out with this. This has everything to do with the fact that Jesus told us even to love our enemies. We have to recognize that, first of all, the light that he tells us to do comes from the same source that the love that he tells us to have, even for folks you don't even know. Right. All right. I'll just pause right here because y'all, I don't think y'all hear me. The light that he gives us comes from the same source as the love he tells us to have. Well, where does it all come from? Well, if you read down over in Galatians 5:22 and 23, you'll see where it comes from. Right. Didn't he tell you that the fruit of the Spirit is love and joy and peace and long-suffering and meekness, faith, temperance, kindness? Against such there is no law. Well, he told you that all of that comes from him. Where do you think the light that you have come from? It comes from him. Now, if the light that you actually have comes from him, and the love that you have comes from him, let me tell you how much light you got. You got an endless supply of light. That means you can't, if the light's not shining, it's not because God tired. It's because you tired. If that, then it's on your shoulders. It's on our shoulders. Yeah. Because we have an endless supply of love. And we say we got to cut it off because somehow or another we can't love everybody. But let me tell you what God said. God says, I don't have to love everybody. I just love who I created. All right. I ain't got to love all y'all. I just got to love what I created. Now, a lot of us sometimes think that we actually created ourselves. Yeah. Well. A lot of us thought we got ourselves up this morning. And start our own self on our way. A lot of us think that somehow or another we are the ones responsible for our own fate. We're the ones responsible for whatever it is that we are in terms of trying to decipher our purpose. But right here, let me tell you what your purpose is, because this is getting to what it is I'm telling you right now. The actual light that you have comes from the same source as the love you have, and the love you have comes from God. Well, then what is your purpose? Your purpose is to glorify the one where your light comes from. That's your purpose. If you try to decipher, well, I want to be a lawyer, that's not your purpose. That's how you administrate your purpose. But that's not your purpose, y'all. And I want to dispel confusion for you this morning. Sometimes we get caught up in our salvation. Well, I'm still trying to solve my salvation, work my salvation. And no, you ain't got to work your salvation now. What you're working is your discipleship. All right. Right, man. And we confuse that all the time. Somehow or another, we think that somehow or another, it's all about what it is that we do for God that actually is going to have us sitting on the right-hand side. It ain't nothing you can do that actually has God have you sitting on the right-hand side. Because it's Him, and it's totally Him. It's about grace, and it's about mercy. It's Because you know you're saved because you have the Holy Ghost inside of you. How did you get the Holy Ghost inside? I told you before, I was going to tell y'all. You get the Holy Ghost inside of you by acknowledging that Jesus has been risen from the dead. And because you believe he has been risen from the dead, you confess with your mouth and you believe in your heart that he was risen from the dead. He said, and you shall be saved. Salvation is yours at that instant, right then and there. It's not a possibility that you got to work for. It's not about trying to get on God's good side. It's not about trying to figure out, well, how you going to dispel the darkness with the light that God already put in you. It's all about doing what God said do, the way he said do it. What you're working out, Christian friends, is not your salvation. You're working out your discipleship. And y'all know what discipleship is. It means you just a learner, you're a follower. And here's the thing, discipleship requires teaching. You can't learn without a teacher. So how you gonna have a teacher if you ain't willing to go up under no teacher? And how you gonna practice that which you've been taught unless you serve? You know, they used to give me homework. I used to be a teacher, y'all. But before I became a teacher, I was a learner. And before I actually became a teacher, I had to go ahead and do my homework. And you know why? The reason why teaching homework seemed like a necessary evil. So why is it that I had to do homework for? It's so I can practice what I was taught. Because see, once I practiced what I was taught, I didn't have no other way to use any algebra or calculus or trigonometry or differential equations or Euclidean geometry. I didn't have a way to practice that stuff in real life. So the only way I can get that stuff practiced is if I actually did the homework. But in order for me to even know what the homework was, I had to put myself under the teacher and his tutelage or her tutelage, their tutelage. Well, Christian friends, what do you think church is? I'm gonna let that slide because some people think church is just some place we just do on Sunday morning and 11 o'clock. We just think that somehow or another ain't got nothing to do with the light. Somehow or another ain't got nothing to do with doing your shine. But the thing that I'm here to let you know, Christian friends, is the fact that if the church is what Jesus is coming back for, if the church is, matter of fact, the Greek word for church is ekklesia, which means called out fellowship. And I just about tell y'all every time I'm preaching, if it means called out fellowship, then you can't do a fellowship by yourself unless you are mighty schizophrenic. And if you are mighty schizophrenic, let me know. I know who to call to get y'all some help. But you can't have church by yourself. And then you can go ahead and watch what you want to watch on TV, but you have no interaction with others in terms of doing your shine. You gonna do your shine on TV? Well then, how do you know that your shine is dead? How do you know that you fulfilled your purpose? How do you know that you have no fear of the dark? How do you know that the light is actually greater than the darkness is? And that fact that how do you know what Jesus even said for you to do if you've never been anywhere to submit yourself to any teaching towards your discipleship? That's why, Christian friends, I know y'all didn't like this sermon. I'm sorry. But we getting ready to go. But I'm here to let you know in no uncertain terms that God is blessing you when you dare to do your shine. How do I know He's blessing you when you do your shine? Because the light of the world did His shine. What His shine did He do? He just walked down the Via Dolorosa. He did His shine. He had a crown of 72 thorns. He did His shine. They whipped Him with a cat of 9 tails. He did His shine. He walked up into the hill called Golgotha. He did His shine. They nailed Him in His hands. He did His shine. They nailed Him in the feet. He did His shine. They actually hung Him up high. And then they He did his shine. But then after he did his shine, let me tell you what else he did. He didn't die. He did his shine. Yes, he died. He did his shine. But then he died. He was buried. Oh, he did his shine. In the borrowed tomb, he did his shine. But he didn't stay in the borrowed tomb because he gave it back. He did his shine. But early, Sunday morning, he got up. He did his shine. But he didn't just get up to do his shine. He's coming back again to do his shine. And what is his shine? He's coming back for a prepared church. For people that are doing their shine. Let your light so shine. Let your light so shine. Let your light so shine that it exemplifies the purpose that God has actually allowed